I was punching down at candy bars. You said something, like I said, it hit me right in the chest square. And you go, okay, we're selling candy bars and I want you to buy a candy bar. But the need is far greater than this $3 candy bar. And let me explain to you why. And I went, oh, wow. I was like, you just opened up this huge door. You know what I mean? It's like, welcome to our event. This is what we're doing. Would you like to learn more? Speaking of kids, and you shared on our most recent episode we did together how you got into fundraising. It's a really beautiful story with your mom getting you into fundraising and selling apples. And it was the beginning of something. And it was like, okay, year 2, we came back with the apples. Year 3, there was a deeper conversation. Well, if you're a child of I was born in 1980. I'm assuming that we're a similar age.
83, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm assuming that you sold chocolate bars.
Oh, yeah.
I sold chocolate bars too. I remember exactly where I was. I was in Belmont, California, in the Bay Area, and I was eating chocolate bars, and my parents had to flip the bill. And we were doing it for like school, and then we did it for Little League, and it was just like the ubiquitous chocolate bar sales. And I'm bringing this up because I was on my soapbox talking, not disparagingly, I don't think, because that's really not my style anyway. You know me well enough to know that.
Yeah.
But I was demonizing the waste of time, the ineffectiveness, because I'm some fundraising expert now, right? And I was demonizing the effectiveness of chocolate bar sales. And you brought up something really, really important. It was good. It was profound. I'm telling you. That's why and I enjoyed talking to you, but this is why we're doing the episode too, right? And I'll tell the audience what you said because it was great. But I'm calling myself out because you hit me with something so hard that I am becoming exactly by saying those things, by demonizing chocolate bars or or disparaging how an organization goes about their fundraising. And I was becoming something that I really despise. And what I mean by that is I really despise the folks that are turning their backs on fundraising tools that say you don't need this anymore. You just need this. And it's usually the answer is just one thing. And for the audience, usually that answer is major gifts. But anyway, I had to get that dig in there.
No,
right?
I get it.
But I know a ton of major gifts people that have come on the pod too. They're amazing, right? And I love their work. And I think I mentioned this to you when we spoke before, fundraising is an and strategy. It is not an or. It is not, no, take away this and or, do this. It's an and thing. And we've been saying this for a long time at our company, as loud as we can. Be an equal opportunity receiver, build relationships, spend time with people, all of these things. And I'm calling myself out because, like I said, I became in that moment something that I was like, oh, wow, I don't want to be rigid. It is an and thing. And I was using, I was punching down at candy bars. Yeah. And you said something, and I'm paraphrasing. I want you to say it from your mouth though, Don. But you said something, like I said, it hit me right in the chest square. And you said, well, when I'm talking to organizations that are selling candy bars, and I call this, when you're consulting, you meet them where they're at, right? I feel like you do that in spades. Yeah. Because I've been consuming enough of your content to see how you operate. And you go, okay, we're selling candy bars and I want you to buy a candy bar. But the need is far greater than this $3 candy bar. And let me explain to you why. And I went, oh, wow. I was like, you just opened up this huge door. You know what I mean? It's like, welcome to our event. This is what we're doing. Would you like to learn more?
Yeah.
And the problem is it's not the candy bar's fault. It's not the effort that goes behind, right?
They are the world's finest, like it's.
Tell the audience, did I do a good job of paraphrasing what you said?
I think so. I like to refer to them as symbolic fundraisers. So, and again, the candy bar is it's the candy bar. It's also not. It's your low level item of some sort. So a lot of fundraising, we were talking before we, pressed record on here. Somebody today, I wish I could give them credit, I forgot, but they put up a photo and it said being a fundraiser is being like a spy. Nobody knows what you actually do, right? So again, at the end of the day, we're trying to get money for the mission, but there are just an infinite amount of ways we can get that money. So the candy bar, what it represents, I always took it as one of the ways that we could combat objections, and also a way to show that we are working to the best of our ability. And anything beyond that is where we need you. So if we're talking we'll talk younger groups, for example, right? When we go to solicit donations or support for some type of group, and maybe they're doing candy bars, or they're doing a spaghetti dinner fundraiser, or they're selling the scented light bulbs, I don't know, something like that, right? We often get the question, we'll say, hey, we're trying to do this. This is what it costs. Can you help us in this sense? And almost always we will get the question, especially from an older generation, is what are they doing to help themselves? And that is the perfect opportunity for me to go, oh, I'm so glad you asked. Actually, the kids have been selling candy bars, or the group has been doing, tag days, or they've got the boot out on the intersections collecting stuff, or we're doing all of these things. So glad you asked. And I'll even joke sometimes, and I'll say, obviously the word's not getting out to you, so I'm going to have some come to your door if you want any of these candy bars, whatever it might be. But it answers that question of what are you doing to help yourself? And it answers that question also of this right now is potentially our max that we can do. And we're not looking for the hand out, but, could you help us with the hand up in that sense? And I don't know how many times I've gotten, especially again, from not calling out an older generation, we love them, but I don't know how many times from an older generation, they'll kind of stand there and go, okay. And then they'll go and get the checkbook, or they'll ask for more information, et cetera. So, we talked about this last time too on the podcast. I think it's just about being scrappy sometimes.
Yeah.
So, right? If your nonprofit is pulling in, if it's still a small one that's under $1 million a year, but they're pulling in $500 to $600, don't go out and sell World's Finest chocolate. Nothing against World's Finest, right? But there is that small item out there somewhere that might be worth it in terms of your visibility. And again, it can help with, as I said before, just combating that objection quite a bit. And sometimes too, these are things that people just look forward to each year, and they're things that provide some recognition for your organization.
It's almost like they expect it. Year after year. Yeah. It's like what you're talking about with your story with your mom and selling the apples. Folks expected you to come by, and that just deepened the relationship. I've never heard anyone call it symbolic fundraising. Give some other examples for the audience, and dive a little deeper on that, because it's really good. Because I think I got caught, I got immediately got it when you started explaining it that way. Yeah.
And maybe I need a different term, but basically this, again, it's a symbolism of something we are physically doing to bring in the money that we can. So to me, anything of a symbolic fundraiser, we're talking about anything that we're selling, right? So it might be a candy bar, it might be ad space in a program for a local event. It might be, usually people like the service things a little more. So like I said, if we've put on, some of the groups are interesting because one was putting on a pork chop dinner. And people loved it, but it was so labor intensive.
Yeah.
And also you get not that this happened, but I always worry you get one person gets that pork that's a little undercooked. You're like, oh gosh, right? But again, we just switched to something like a spaghetti dinner. And again, I'm sure there's somebody out there that's kind of rolling their eyes, these seem like low level tickets. I'm not necessarily talking to those people. I'm talking about, I know when I've helped some nonprofits start off before, and we did whatever we needed to do to get those fees paid for the 501c3 application. Sometimes that was garage sale flipping, right? And that's not the point to be there forever, but that's to basically scale up in that sense. So then later on, hey, you started with garage sale flipping or a loan from a friend, or you're selling this stuff. Later on, then you can have the one low level ticket item in that sense. But that's again what I kind of see that is any type of thing. It might be bumper stickers, it could be some merch of some thing. I just think it has to be paired with some sort of action of some sort. And I think also too, I'll say this, we were talking about kids, and I've got a bunch of kids, so you I'm really big on kids hitting all of those steps that we kind of think about in the quote unquote traditional childhood. I don't think it's a bad thing for kids to sell door to door on some things to support what they're doing. You know, we don't want them hitting up everybody all of the time, but as soon as my daughter years ago, she was saving up for this Animal Crossing Nintendo 3DS game. So, right. Like I said, I'll front you some of the money if you pull weeds in the neighborhood. But if you knock on the doors of these other people and ask, can I do this for you? Holy cow. She was so nervous.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it was just like, you know, wanted to run away, but spoke to those people. And then 2 or 3 years later, she's like one of the leads in the musical there. And I'm not saying it was like that was the direct path to it, but it was important for her and for my other kids. Now, my older boys are trying to start a lawn mowing business, right? Same thing. Cool. We got the lawnmowers, got all these people in our cul-de-sac. Let's go ahead and get that going. So I think there's that part of it. And this is not to insult anybody, but I've been talking with some EDs, development directors, fundraisers now too. They're just kind of concerned to pick up the phone. And again, I get it. There's no judgment on it because it's not what a lot of people are regularly doing. It's so much easier to text for a donation, etc. But I don't know. I think it's an easy way to get your reps in. And to me, right, like, here's the thing is we want to get to that point of big support. But like, you know, if I can sell you a candy bar, it means that I can sell you on what our mission is and that it's worth at least $1 to you. But I got to be able to make it worth $1 to you if I ever want to come to you and say, hey, here's this bigger partnership, or here's a sponsorship, or here's a donation or a gift option there.
God, it's so big. I love that the symmetry that we're speaking of, that you know, with entrepreneurship, or, you know, yes, it's good for your children to learn how to ask and do these things for themselves. Like, we have a responsibility as parents, and like you said, scrappy. You know, like it's also good if you did do that at some point to remember what your roots are. And I had a really interesting conversation with someone that's been involved with the organization for 20 years and now runs it, but comes from the for-profit side. Started as a volunteer, natural maturation process, and really, really cool. He's like, you know what still keeps me up at night? My, paranoia, making payroll. He runs a nonprofit. They do really well. But he remembers, do you know what I mean? Walking door to door, right? And there's also the timing of this conversation too, Don, is like, not like we're a couple brilliant guys, but the timing is really, really good, where there's an interesting coalescence of, I'm afraid to get on the phone. We hear that too. That trepidation could be, we could say that's coming from so many different things and what's going on in the world. I don't understand it, right? Of course, because we have to do it. And then there's also a ton of uncertainty. And you have to make payroll, and you have to advance the mission. And it's like, so I don't know, it doesn't have to be a candy bar, but it needs to be something. And like you said, it gives you reps. And if you can get someone to buy in for $10, then you can have that conversation over time where you can get them hopefully to buy in for 10,000 if they have the capacity.
That's right. Yeah. And that's the thing. Again, the candy bars aren't going to, fulfill the entire mission. Yeah. Chances are they won't, right? But all of that being said, even without a selling point of it, the whole thing of, we always talk about building relationships. And I mean, I don't know, when's the last time someone called you and just said, Trevor, how are you today? That's it. Right. And then you hang up the phone. You're like, I don't know, sometimes people, when that happens, you're like, oh, that was nice to hear from them. There are other times you hear from certain people, you're like, all right, 2 weeks from now, they're going to be calling me for this thing. That's the favor phone call. But, again, back to that. And this is where I truly say no judgment. I could talk to anybody now, but I was so nervous to pick up the phone in my early 20s. I found this was like right as apps were coming out, I think, or maybe it was a phone thing. I found a way that you could punch in a number before the number and it would go straight to their voicemail. So they never even had the chance.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that existed. Yeah.
And I was like, oh my gosh, so nervous about it. Call them, right? Because it's the rejection. It's that, whatever, imposter syndrome, etc. And then I would get, sometimes I'd get a phone call back, sometimes I wouldn't. But, not getting the phone call back was a lot better than that rejection, right? So I had to get out of that. And I remember making those real calls. It was just a thing I had to do. Of course, the first person you call, you catch them in the middle of dinner with, 6 kids coming after them and the dog barking.
Inevitably, of course.
But,
Hey, I've done some crazy stuff on the phone. Nothing, illegal, but yeah, I've been there. 83% of you watching this show right now have not hit the subscribe button to the Hey Nonprofits YouTube channel. Do us a favor, it'd mean the world to me and the Hey Nonprofits team. Just hit the subscribe button and you'll stay up to date with every new show, every new video that we pump out. We're going to keep pumping out shows with the greatest minds in fundraising. Please do us a favor. Hit that subscribe button. Now back to the episode. So we talk, just speaking about that and that fear, just with the phone or just in general, we say things to folks like, hey, listen, take the hooks out, take the pressure off yourself. We'll tell you what to say. This is what we do in 10 words or less. We'll get all these tools. And we say, reframe it. How about instead of asking, we invite? Let's invite people to get involved, invite people to give. When you coach someone, or, a lot of people, obviously, when you coach them, what do you tell them to get them over the hump, so to speak? What do you tell them to knock some of that fear out?
So I'm a little rough, but not a bad way, but we'll ease people into it. But then after that, I love to just do the whole objection thing. I like to bring up every single objection. And I'm really big. Again, my background is a musician. Yeah. So, if I'm prepping to, I'm a trumpet player. So if I'm prepping a 7-minute trumpet solo, I am going to practice either that solo or details that go into that probably 6 months ahead of time, about 4 hours a day. Right. Yeah. And that's just for 7 minutes.
You're running scales.
Running scales and stuff. Right. And you think about it, if you're a baseball player, the kids are in baseball now, they are throwing and catching every single day. They're practicing their swing. It's all fundamental stuff.
Yep.
So we'll start. And again, it depends on the person, because there are some people, if you start pushing right away on it, and again, I'm not super aggressive, but if you start pushing right away, they're just like, this is too much, because these are real. Up a little bit. Yeah. Well, and these are real issues, right?
Yeah.
So sometimes you're getting deeper into some things where it's like, I can't pick up the phone because I'm just afraid of being rejected as a person overall. Or,
my girlfriend broke up with me on the phone once, and I just can't.
Yeah, there's something out there, right? My girlfriend threw the phone at my head. All right.
Yeah, exactly.
I deserved it, but so for me, it's a lot of that objection part, and it's interesting because I'll stay on as long as we need, and we'll just go through 900 objections. Yeah. And I'll say, if no one's hanging up yet, it doesn't necessarily mean a no. So there is that part where we feel guilty. One thing that helps people a lot is I have to tell them, you're not asking money for yourself. You're asking for money for the organization. Now, you and I both know it might go to operating costs. You may sometimes, again, we're realists. Somebody may be on the phone trying to save their job to get their salary, going on. This is how these things work.
It's real.
Yeah. But it's that. And what's funny is what will happen then, where people have issues with, is when you call somebody up and right away they're agreeable. Because then what you have is people, I've been like this before, you have people that are now trying to talk themselves out of the donation.
Yes. Yeah.
and that's the part, right? At that point, what is it? Shut up. Just here it is. Here's the link. Because there are some people out there, like I don't call them unicorns, but every once in a while you'll call someone up. Hey, Trevor, I'd love to invite you to, take a look at this. I sent some stuff over ahead of time. You said that was cool. Did you get a chance to look at it? Oh, yeah, I'd like to support at the 500 level. Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, if I could tell you about all of the other, no.
Yeah, no, cool. Exactly.
Yeah, here's the link, or can I come, pick it up from you? It's super, super generous. And by the way, we'd love to offer you a free World's Finest Candy Bar.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, well, and then on the phone, that's a fascinating conversation in and of itself. There's just so much power in silence.
Yeah. But, the other thing too, we've talked about this, is that, and I think this helps people out, is if you if they agree to a phone call with you ahead of time, and it's not always the case, but if you're able to form some contact ahead of time and they agree to a phone call with you, and you have said, I'm going to talk to you about inviting you to support.
Yeah.
Like 99% of the time, they are going to support.
Yeah.
You might get some of those, again, some objections. I had recently, I asked somebody to support at the $2,000 level. And he's like, okay. And then there's the silence. I'm like, oh, that was too much. I think that's something that, my wife and I, we run through all the finances with each other on that. I would like to speak with her on that. We'll definitely be doing something, but I'll get back to you, right? You have to be respectful of those things. I know some people will be like, no, you got to push back. I'm like, that's a real thing, especially when you're talking about real dollars. Now, totally. I'll say this also. Here's the scrappy part. To me, I'm like, cool. When are you and your wife available? I can just talk to both of you at the same time. We'll save everyone some time. But that guy came. Did he donate? What I asked? No, he donated $300. Like it was $300 we needed. So there was no. I wasn't upset about it. There's no shame, but that's that thing. Like it wasn't a rejection for it. I think if I see him on the street, he'll still say hi to me. But I was doing my job in that sense.
You got dollars in the door. I heard someone say that from the nonprofit space, and they said, we need to get dollars in the door. And I was like, yes, keep saying this. And, and you can learn a lot from listening to people too, right? With the phone, back to the phone thing. Dollars in the door.
Visit. Yeah. If you get a visit, by the way, too, if someone agrees to visit with you, that's another high chance of success.
Big time. Absolutely.
Right? But that's the thing. Somebody that's been, because sometimes you get people that kind of fall into these roles. It's something they've always wanted, or they don't know everything that goes into it.
Yeah.
But there's so much. And I would say go to those, for anybody that's new to that stuff, like go to the, what is it, Nonprofit Ready website or something like that? Like that's still some good information. It's a lot of free trainings.
Okay.
I think it's Nonprofit Ready. And they'll like basically go through the nuts and bolts of a nonprofit, like if you've never done this before.
Wow.
And I think it's wonderful for those people that they don't know anything. And they just do that, and then they start getting the reps in, they start getting success. You'll have some people that have been at this a bit that forget on those, and they're like, what the heck? This guy's only been at it for 2 months.
That's another thing you talk about. We forget a lot of our success. We forget a lot of what got us to where we're at. Overcomplicated. Absolutely. Yeah. Clear over clever. I love that one from our friend Kevin Brown. It's so good. Clear over clever. When you say Nonprofit Ready and you say all these things, it also really, really reminds me that no matter what, you mentioned baseball, you mentioned playing the trumpet, reps, all of these things, you need to be a student.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I appreciate you taking me to class because, like I said, I became something where I was like, no, the candy bars are horrible. Get rid of all of them. And I was like, oh my goodness. And you framed it. It's like, buy the candy bar, but the need is so much greater than that. Yeah. And we'd love to talk to you about it. And I was like, brother, come on the pod and share it. So I'm just glad you did. And I just
appreciate it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just a great reminder to folks. There's a beautiful like Japanese Shoshin, like having the beginner's mindset, no matter how far along you are, you have it. I'm continually being pushed to have it. I love being a student of this. And I hope everyone gets a lot of value out of it. Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing, brother.
Absolutely.
Like I said, thanks for taking me to class, man. You opened my eyes.
Well, it's a good thing. And kind of like a little closing on it too.
Please.
Every organization is going to struggle at some point. And I know a lot are struggling right now with maybe federal grants, for example, or federal funding. Anytime I've been involved with or have worked with an organization that's struggling, there's never been that one specific donor that just drops a giant bag of money at our door and saves the day. Like often that would be kind of the first thing. Oh, if we talk to this guy, we talk to this guy, we talk to this person, we talk to et cetera. That almost never works. You never get that sort of lifeline. What does work though is, again, the metaphorical, go flip some stuff at the garage sale, right? What is the nonprofit version of that? And that's what has been something that at least helps us get through those times, think about your own life when you've struggled with money at some point, like, I don't know, you could go and apply for maybe a job that pays 50% more, but sometimes you need that money in your pocket right now, right? Like it's a little bit of a hustle economy type thing.
Yeah.
So,
well, huge. Yeah. That reminder for folks to hustle, to have a good, healthy hustle. It's what they need to hear.
It's work.
It's totally work. It's never going to be easy. For-profit, nonprofit. Yeah. It's never going to be easy. And like you said, no one's going to drop a big old bag of money at your door. So,
and we keep coming back for some reason. So I was like, you talk to some teachers around here, and it was funny. I talked to a teacher once, and I said, "Why are you a teacher?" And they said, "Well, I love money and I hate kids." Just dripping with sarcasm there. So.
Totally. Yeah. Hey, well, I'm not one-upping you, but yeah, we had a guest on. And she said, "Hey, Trev, I don't get paid in dollars. I get paid in feels."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, that's good. That's really good." Hey, thank you once again, brother. Thanks for being so generous with your time. Thanks for sharing. We're gonna do the candy bars and make them even better. So here we go. Appreciate you, brother. Thanks so much.
Absolutely.
Thanks so much for coming on. Thanks everybody for tuning in.